Hey everyone, Jackie here with Enjoying Life's Journey. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we would talk about habit training for children, or rather laying down the rails habit training. And basically kind of what I'm referring to is based off of Charlotte Mason's method of homeschooling. Charlotte Mason believes in educating the entire child, and one of them being laying down the rails, or helping your children develop good habits as part of that. And I believe, whether you homeschool or not, that this is actually the job of every parent. So the resources that I'm going to be sharing with you today are from simplycharlottemason.com, and I'm not endorsed by her or anything like that. These are just references that I picked up for our personal use, and so I wanted to kind of go over them. But more importantly, I wanted to go over the idea of habit training and kind of introduce you guys to all of the different habits that we could be instilling in our children and possibly reinforcing in ourselves. So to start off with, I had just purchased the workshop on the DVD, and this one is just a short little workshop of Sonia Schaefer, the one that's in charge of simplycharlottemason.com. So this one my husband and I watched together, and that way my husband had an idea of what I was trying to accomplish with the girls as far as habit training. And then along with that is the habits, the laying down the rails habit handbook. So this one, when I first bought the whole set, I kind of felt like this was redundant. I didn't feel like I needed it. But then the more I started reading into the lessons and stuff, I actually realized that this is definitely good to have in addition to the other two books I'm going to show you. So talk about this briefly. So this one is the handbook. So this one lists all of the habits. There's like a little over 60 habits, and it goes over kind of what they mean and what Charlotte Mason, what her views were on the habit, and a few little ideas of how to implement those habits in your household. So again, at first I thought it was redundant, because in these books, now this is Laying Down the Rails for Children, this is the Habit Training Companion. So this one's actually a 2-book set. So all of the habits are in here, and then they actually have lesson plans or lesson plan ideas, extra material to use, or activities to do with your children to teach those habits. So this has a lot of the same stuff, talking about like what it is and everything like that, but this one actually does give a little more information, a little more in-depth information. So they do kind of work hand in hand. So again, you don't need to buy lesson plans or anything to do habit training. The idea, though, that I did like with this is I like to have things kind of written down and kind of an idea of how to go about doing it. So like I mentioned, there's about 60 plus habits. So you could just have a list of the habits at your house and decide which ones you want to do. This one, I liked the idea of having a little more information as into it. So just to give you an idea of some of the habits, because you might think, well, habits, like what do you mean? So there's different categories or different types of habits that you could be working with your kids on. And so on this one, she goes and she actually takes the time to split them up. So I'll go ahead and put the a list of the habits here on the side, but I'll just kind of go through each area or types of habits. So some types of habits are decency and propriety habits. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So for instance, cleanliness, courtesy, kindness, manners, things like that. Another category of habits are mental habits. So attention, imagination, memorization, meditation, things like that. So again, I'll list some of them down. Then you have like moral habits. So you have your integrity, obedience, self-control, those type of habits. And let me come in, so there's a lot of habits. and I'll list them. And then you have physical habits, so health, outdoor life, self-control in emergencies, self-discipline. So those are some of your physical habits that we can be doing. And then you have religious habits, so learning to do regular devotions, and she goes into a few other ones. And then the final one is a family habit of reading aloud. And so she goes over all of these habits, like I said, in detail, kind of explaining what they are and how they're going to benefit your child and even maybe yourself. So the idea, she actually recommends 3 top habits that you start with. The first one is obedience, and she feels obviously if your child doesn't listen to you, they're not going to continue to listen to you to then learn all the other habits, right? So the first one is obedience. The second one is attention. So getting them to be able to actually pay attention to something long enough to then learn it. And then the third one is truthfulness. So obviously having them being able to tell you the truth and knowing what's appropriate as far as facts when asking them to tell you something or something like that. So you have those 3 as your top 3, and then she says from there, you know, go through all of the habits and then sit down and make a list, maybe 4 different categories. So the top priority, like these are the absolute main habits that we want to teach. And then the second one, you know, these are, you know, next. Once we get through those, we definitely want to hit these. And then the third one being, I would like to hit these, but they're not as important. And then the fourth one being like, if we don't get to them, it's not the end of the world type thing. So you have a kind of a category and you sit through them, and then you can kind of go over. In that, I recommend doing that, you know, with your spouse. Go over that with your spouse and say, hey, you know, what habits do we feel are going to be good habits for our children? And this is actually really nice too, because it kind of gets you to sit down and determine like what are your personal beliefs? What are, you know, what's your family mission, your family goal? Like, how do you really want your children to be as adults? And again, a lot of these habits you may look at and be like, you know, I really wish I had that habit. And so you could even work on a habit at the same time that your child is working on a habit, or reinforce a habit that you lost track of or something. So I think it's really a cool thing to do, not only for your children, but as a family. In addition, Charlotte Mason mentions to try to spend anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks on a habit. These lesson plans, most of the lessons in here, most of the habits have about 12 lesson plans or ideas. So basically, if you did about 2 lessons a week, then you would get through those habits in the 6-week time frame. So the idea is you kind of do a lesson, and that's just something kind of either discussing what the habit is. The very first lesson, pretty much all of them, is coming up with a game plan as far as what goals you want to see reached, what habit it is, how what it is in that habit. And I'll go over that a little more detail. I'll give you an example of our first habit here in a minute. So you kind of sit down, and then you sit down with your child. Obviously, when your children are younger, you may not be doing this initial sit-down time. But as they get older, you're going to sit down with them and discuss it and discuss what is expected of them, and then how you guys are going to implement it. And then again, you can go through your lessons, you know, 2 a week, and then you could be through. And then as you move on to the next one, so you only focus on one habit at a time. As you go on to the next one, then you're still reinforcing that other one that's in the background, but you're moving forward. And these resources for the pack, I believe it was about $65, and that might seem like a lot. However, if you think about it, there's like 60 habits in here. Even if you got through them fast and say you only focus on one habit a month, you're still looking at 5 years of habit training. And that might seem daunting to you, but basically 5 to 10 years of habit training, that's if you want to go through all of the habits. I read through a lot of these habits, and I actually like a lot of these habits. Some of these habits you may already be doing. Some of the physical habits you may already be doing with your child, their obedience, things like that. You're probably already doing that with them, and you don't even realize you're doing it. So a lot of them you may only need to spend like a week on anyway. So again, these resources are great because they're going to last you pretty much your whole child's life. depending on how fast or how slow you want to touch on these habits. So I think they're great. So what we decided to do was we're going to start with the first 3 habits that she recommends. She also, I'm kind of a little all over the place, sorry guys. She also recommends that you can start habit training as early as 1 years old, right? And so again, your 1-year-old's not going to sit through a little meeting or a lesson plan about some of these habits, but again, the resources kind of give you ideas of how to start implementing those habits, even if they are a very young age. And same thing in the DVD kind of gives you a couple more examples, which I like. So for instance, we're starting with the 3 habits. So we officially started January. We said we're officially starting with the lesson plans. Arcadia is going to be 5 in February next month, so I figured she's old enough now to understand what we're reading and what we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and start, or actually we're actually on week 2 of our lesson. So we're starting with obedience, and then we're going to go into attention, and then truthfulness, like Charlotte Mason mentions. And then the rest of the ones we actually picked based out of, if you saw my plan for our preschool kindergarten years, I actually had gotten the early years preschool handbook from simplycharlottemason.com. So she has different chapters. If you see, I have highlighted on here. Those are things that I already have references or material to kind of go over. So I'm actually, a lot of the areas in here are actually habits in the habit training manual or the handbook here. So I thought, how cool is that? It kind of helps me do a lot of this with just habit training. So that first, like preschool years, you guys, you're pretty much just doing habit training. You're doing habit training, having them have a clean environment, a good atmosphere, a loving atmosphere, and then getting a lot of free play outside. So that's pretty much what we're focusing on. And then as we get into kindergarten, you might start adding in, and then you're going to do a lot of start reading aloud every day. But then you're going to start going into more, like actually utilizing some of your nature studies and things like that. So I use this kind of as my guide for my first year of habits. So I'll just go over, so what I did was I just basically said, okay, it's going to take me about 2 months to do a habit. And I referenced that book to decide which habits we are going to do. Now, I don't have them in order yet. I will probably try to follow that book of what order to do it in. But these are, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 habits here. And again, some of them they don't really have lessons pertaining to them. So the first one on here is the habit of family read alouds. And that's just separate. There's no lesson plan. So that is just getting in the habit of reading aloud every day. And stay tuned. I'm going to start doing our monthly library haul for our read alouds in another video. So one of our habits, is that. So I have the top 3, which I already mentioned. Then I also have cleanliness, so we're going to be working on that, which is part of our decency habits. And then we have health, which is part of, in Charlotte Mason's preschool handbook, it talks about proper physical care. So we have health, and it talks about having a lot of outdoor time and having an acquaintance with nature. So the other one, we have outdoor life. There's a habit of outdoor life, so we're going to start trying to build that as a family habit of being outside. And then they actually have in the preschool handbook, they have talking about working with your senses. So there's actually a habit of developing quick perception of senses. So being aware of everything, which I think is very important, especially when they're young. They got to learn that they need to be aware of everything going around. And then the other one is part of a religious habit, and it's the regularity in devotions. Now, we don't belong to any organized religion. We don't go to church. We don't say we have prayer, but I do believe that some kind of devotion, whether it's writing in a journal or setting goals for the next day, or even just writing down some gratitude statements or something like that, I think should be incorporated into your everyday routine, or at least weekly routine, right? So those are the habits we're going to focus on for this first year. And then from there, my husband and I are going to go through and list, again, what's the most important. The next one, about 4 categories of what we want to work for. And we're going to try to get through most of these. And I'm going to say, it might take us 5 to 10 years to get through these. And that's totally cool with me. The other thing I have, and this is actually something I got this at the dollar store a while back, and it's a chore chart. And rather than using it for the chores, I'm using it for our habit training. So I just crossed out chore and put habit. So my habit chart for Arcadia, our first one, I just put obedience. And so for each day of the week, so each day of the week, if she does good with that habit, she gets a smiley face. If she did okay, she gets a little squiggly face. And if she didn't do good at all, she gets a frown face. And at the end of the month, basically I figured one box would fill a month. At the end of the month, if she overall did a good job, she gets a little sticker. So she kind of just likes the idea of having stickers and smiley faces. It's something fun that the younger kids can do. Obviously, as they're older, they're probably not going to care about this. In addition, Charlotte Mason mentions about having some kind of a reward for an achievement, you know what I mean? So it's whatever your family decides to do. So I'm just going to, real quick, like I mentioned, I was going to go over what you do at the beginning. So at the beginning of your, let's see if I can find this on here for you guys. So it has like a little worksheet for you to do, you and your spouse or you, whatever, and it gives the habit, and then it gives a little very short description or definition of the habit, and then it has here on parent prep. So you're going to put down the goals for the habit. So for instance, for the goal of obedience, we want Arcadia to respond the very first time we ask her to do it. We want her to do it quickly and cheerfully, at least not grubbing about it. And then the other goal is that the outcome isn't just for her to obey us as parents, but eventually it's for her to have the desire to obey all authority. And this is going to help her in the future, if she, when she has a job and she has a boss, or if she's with other parents that are taking care of her at that time, or if she ends up, going to high school or college or wherever where she has, other people that she needs to listen to. So the idea of obedience isn't just, oh, I'm the parent, you listen to me, but it's to teach them the overall desire. And again, that's to the desire. So it's not that they're doing it, but it's just because they were told, but it's because they actually feel, they know that that's the right thing to do. Sorry, my nose is running. So the other thing is you write down either a person or a story from your life that can demonstrate the habit. In the lessons here, some of them actually have some stories or poems already within the lessons, so that's kind of nice to give you an idea of what you can do. And then you could also, you write down any additional stories or poems, or again, Charlotte Mason likes to do a lot of things from the Bible, so she has a lot of references to different Bible verses. So, use them or don't use them, it's totally up to you. And then you can write down any other activities that you think would be good. So they recommend that you read through kind of the lessons first, because again, a lot of these lessons already have a story or a poem to read, and then they actually might have an activity. Like, so for instance, today's activity was to play a game that required the child to listen to you. So like we did Simon Says, okay? So you can do red light, green light, if you have more people with you, mother, may I, and then we did Simon Says. So, things like that. So it gives you ideas already, and then if you have any other ideas, you can write them in your little plan here, which I think is nice. And then it has celebration ideas. So again, that's, whatever you guys decide to do. And then we just decided that we are going to keep the chart to help document for our celebration. And that's with any goal setting, you guys. Have some kind of celebration at the end for you as well if you're doing any goal settings or habit training. So I think that's it on habit training. I know I might have been talking fast, or I might have been all over the place a little bit, but I'm excited about this one. Again, we started with obedience. We just did lesson 3 today. We did 2 lessons last week, so we'll do 1 more lesson this week. So we're going to kind of do that pace. We're going to do 2 lessons a week, and that way we should be getting done with each habit training in about 6 weeks. That's the idea. And so I went over with you some of the different habits that you can do with your children and the ones that we're focusing on for this year. I would love to hear your comments down below. What are some of the top habits that you feel are important to you and your family? So again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more of our homeschool material that we'll be going over in the future. So thanks for watching. Bye.